How we doing, traders? Welcome to the SPACs attack. Let's do it, guys. Welcome. If you're new to the show, definitely hit the subscribe below. This is where we definitely break down not only SPACs and IPOs, but at the end of the day, the stocks that you guys want to see. So definitely stick around with us. I got my brains of the show, Chris Katje here. Say hello, Chris.
Hey, what's up, Mitch? What's up, viewers? Great show we got lined up today.
Yeah, definitely. You know, one of the best things in whenever you have kind of these new industries or industries that are growing, you always want to bring on experts. And boy, do we have an experts today. Can't wait to bring on Will later. But let's go ahead and let's get into our watch list. You know, one of the things I want to get into is some of the headlines of today. And we still got some SPAC headlines. So before we get into esports, let's take us in the headlines, Chris. All right, Chris, what do you see out there?
All right, so we did have a new deal announced actually last night around 4 p.m. So this was for symbol CFII, CF Finance Acquisition Corp 2. So they announced that they were merging with View, which is a smart window company. So that company uses artificial intelligence and machine learning. It can tint the glass to optimize natural light and control the heat and glare. They believe they capture several trends like reduced energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions, and government regulations requiring buildings to be more efficient plays in their favor. They serve corporate offices, airports, multifamily homes, education segment, and healthcare. They have over 1,000 patents and high barriers to entry. They're the market leader in smart windows with an 80% market share in a high margin business. They have a backlog of 560 million in design wins. So they are currently guiding for $75 million in revenue in 2021, 216 million in 2022, and $1.89 billion by 2025, with less than 1% share of a $1 trillion addressable market. Gross margins are 65%. This stock was flying last night after that deal was announced again at close of the market. One of the stocks we've talked about on here, former SPAC, Virgin Galactic, symbol SPCE. They're one of two companies that were selected by NASA yesterday to provide flight and integration services for payloads. That award runs through 2023 and has a combined value of $45 million spread across several companies. The government intends to acquire payload space on commercial flights, including payload integration services. So again, that stock was up yesterday on that deal announcement, that symbol SPCE. And then FTIV is one that someone mentioned in the chat yesterday. So they are nearing a deal. So this is FinTech Acquisition Corp 4 to take Perella Weinberg public. So the target company is an investment bank that delayed their IPO previously. So I want to cover this one, but I'm also going to take some comments from one of our former guests, Julian Klimachko, on Twitter. So the proceeds of this SPAC deal are going to be used to return cash to Perella Weinberg, their founding backers, and also pay some of the firm's retired partners. They also will continue to own the majority of the investment bank and have supermajority control to retain control of the business. Under that structure, this isn't one I love here, because SPACs are all about trying to get these undervalued companies to, the public and, not go the IPO route. And it seems like the way this is being done, shareholders aren't really benefiting here. I will point out, though, on the flip side, the last three fintech acquisition SPACs have all traded above the $11 mark since their SPAC date. So that is worth noting that this partner has benefited and been strong in that segment. Just not a fan of the structure here. Talking this morning about sports betting, online sports betting in Michigan. So we have DMYT, LCA, and DKNG. So two current SPACs and one former SPAC that all are in that sports betting and iGaming market. All three of these companies stand to benefit with Michigan, which is the 10th most populous state, finally, allowing online sports betting, which is set to begin before the end of the year now. So DMYT has Rush Street Interactive, and they're an iGaming market leader across the country. They have access to Michigan. And then LCA, so Golden Nugget Online. They're the #1 online casino in New Jersey, and they also have sports betting in several states. They have access to Michigan. Their CEO, Tillman Fertitta, said that they're going to spend $4 million to hit the ground running in the Michigan market. And then DraftKings, former SPAC, one of the best performing, they announced a deal with the Pistons yesterday, and they plan on being very aggressive in Michigan. Calendar news, so symbol OPES, they are going to vote on their merger on December 15th. So that is with BurgerFi, which is a fast casual restaurant company. So this stock was up on the news of that date. This is one people have been looking forward to for quite a while. So that's definitely one to keep on your radar. Looks like it's up 10% today. And then one that we've talked about here a lot, and to touch on the Virgin Galactic news, so SRAC, they're merging with Momentus, which is a space company going to be the FedEx of space. They announced a new deal yesterday that was also picked up by Barron's, so got some notable news and the media coverage. They signed an agreement with an aerospace company to deliver a spacecraft into low lunar orbit in 2023 or 2024. So moon missions previously were the domain of national space agencies such as NASA, but Momentus is kind of stepping up their game here, and entering that space. They also are going to be on board of a SpaceX rocket here in December. I think this is one of the most compelling SPACs right now out there as they work to complete the deal. So symbol SRAC, this is another great space company, just like Virgin Galactic. And then notable that yesterday we had all-time highs set in GMHI, which we talked about on the show. Their merger date is set for today to merge with Luminar, a LiDAR company, and then FEAC merging with Skills, another one we've talked about on the show, also hit an all-time high yesterday. And that's it for headlines today.
As you guys can see, there's plenty going on in the market. And like always, you got to do your research. You got to know what's going on in the catalyst. So like always, if you want the fastest news, definitely stick with Benzinga Pro. Let's go ahead and let's get into some of our watch lists. I want to bring on some of our watch lists before we bring on our guest, just to kind of give you some of the background, some of the stocks that are in this area. We're going to be talking esports. So let's go ahead and let's bring up this watch list here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of make it a little bit bigger for you guys to see here. Let me know if you guys can see that in the chat. All right, so the first one we have here, we got Corsair Gaming. I'm just going to really quickly run through here so that you guys can see some of these. We got Corsair Gaming, Tencent Holdings. We're going to go into Turtle Beach. We can talk some Sony, of course, the PS5 making moves. Of course, we're going to bring up Nerd, the ETF. We got the one and only Will waiting here, so we'll bring him on in a second here. So we got Microsoft, you got SE, you can look at Activision Blizzard, ATVI, some other ones in this. You can look at GLUU. One that I've been looking at, EA. I've been seeing it find some support, so definitely going to keep this one on watch, guys. There's so many on this radar. We're going to include all these in the description below. And like always, guys, if you guys wanted to get to know more about this, definitely look in the description below. We have a lot of information for Will and the Nerds ETF there, so check it out, guys. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get ready to bring on our guest. Chris, go ahead and bring him on.
All right, guys, I'm excited. We have a returning guest here for the first time on SPAC's Attack. So without further ado, I want to bring on Will Hershey. Will is the co-founder and CEO of Roundhill Investments, a registered investment advisor and ETF sponsor focused on sector-specific investing. The firm launched the first pure-play esports ETF with the ticker NERD, N-E-R-D, and the first sports betting ETF, ticker BETS, BETZ, both traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Hey, Will, how's it going today?
It's going well. Glad to be back. By the way, before we get into anything, smart window companies, is that what you guys said? Things are getting crazy.
That is what I said. I read that last night and I was amazed by it. And then the stock took off and I was like, okay, I guess people are ready for this, but I don't know. We'll see.
you know I need my windows to close by themselves, right? All right, so really excited to have you back on. Last time we talked all about bets, and today it's all about nerd, guys. So definitely hit the like, hit the subscribe down below. I'm gonna go ahead, Chris, get into these questions and start knocking some of these out. So let's get into it.
All right, so here we go. So Will, first question I want to ask you is about that nerd ETF. So I see it's made up of components from 13 countries. What are some of the foreign exchange traded names that U.S. investors get exposure to or may have never heard of before with the nerd ETF?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great place to start because kind of when you look at the world of gaming and esports, it's very much so global in nature, and that's part of the reason we're really bullish on it. You look at the Asia Pacific region, China, Korea, they're really the leaders, particularly in the esports market, Europe as well. A few names that are kind of foreign traded in the basket. An obvious one that actually you can trade the ADR, but I think it's worth mentioning because I almost call it a mini gaming ETF itself, is Tencent. They own a large stake in Epic Games, which is Fortnite. They own Riot Games, which is League of Legends, the world's most popular esports. They have Supercell. They have stakes in tons of different gaming companies, and they're kind of a diversified way to get exposure to the space themselves. Another one I'd highlight, much lesser known, is Modern Times Group, actually traded in Sweden. They're the parent company for DreamHack and ESL, the Electronic Sports League. So they're kind of and they also have a gaming vertical as well, but they're kind of transitioning to be really that pure play on live events in esports, which is something that was kind of put on hold due to the pandemic. Those events shifted online, but that's something we'll look to continue to grow heading into next year. Last one I'll throw out, I'm sure some people watching probably have a Razer mouse or a Razer keyboard or a Razer laptop. They're a play on gaming peripherals and hardware.
Awesome. So next question I want to dive into is about an upcoming IPO in the gaming sector. So we have Roblox, one of the hottest mobile games in the last couple of years, set to go public. So what are your thoughts on this company? And is this one that you're going to look at adding to this ETF?
I can't comment on the ETF, but it's certainly a fascinating company. I mean, when you look at Roblox, and I think you could throw Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto and Fortnite maybe into the same vein, but it's really kind of pioneering this concept of a metaverse and really creating kind of a community based around user-generated content and in-game monetization and digital currency. And Roblox is really interesting for the sole purpose that all of the most popular games on the platform are actually created by users that can then monetize with the platform. So it kind of incentivizes people to come back and promote their own games. Roblox is like the #1 game for kids under the age of 12. They have 31 million daily active users, which is pretty amazing. You look at the bookings growth, I mean, they're growing almost 200% year over year over the first 9 months. That kind of speaks to certainly a boost that we're seeing from the pandemic and from COVID. But if you look up a long-term chart of kind of the user growth and the hours played in Roblox, it's simply incredible. And on top of that, coming back to the user-generated content, creators are making hundreds of millions of dollars themselves. So they're incentivized to continue to kind of promote the platform and promote their games. One thing that I found interesting that was pointed out to me is they actually own their own servers. And Zynga had something similar to this as well, but that makes it a little bit more capital intensive than you typically see. All in all, I mean, it's a really interesting play. When I look at the risks associated with Roblox, it is that it's focused on that, under 13 age demographic. What happens when those players graduate? Are they moving on to Fortnite? Are they moving into Minecraft? Can Roblox continue to capture that market share? But they're doing some amazing things. I mean, they had who was it? Lil Nas X doing a concert inside of the game, similar to what we've seen in Fortnite.
Excellent points there on, trying to keep those user growth. I've got some young boys who, love playing Roblox, and I hear about it all the time. So I'm excited to see what happens with that IPO. Next stock I want to dive into is C Limited, so symbol SE. Their shares are up over 350% in 2020. So this is a foreign gaming company, but trades here in the US. They have a market cap of $90 billion. So what is C Limited all about? And, how did investors maybe miss this gaming play?
Yeah, I mean, C Limit is a fascinating company because really its roots are in gaming and digital entertainment, and it leveraged that audience, that younger tech-savvy gaming audience, into different verticals. So they've actually expanded, and I think a lot of the story right now, and probably a lot of the valuation, is being attributed to their other verticals, including Shopee, their e-commerce platform, C Wallet, their fintech and payments platform. So they've really kind of paved the way, I think, for other gaming companies to follow this model. Where, look, if you have, people aged 18 to 34 who are tech savvy, who appreciate kind of your platform and your ecosystem, let's divert them into different verticals and continue to monetize and create kind of this flywheel effect. But when I look at what we're interested in C4 is really Garena, that digital entertainment vertical. To give you an idea, that they did quarterly EBITDA of 600 million. That was more than Electronic Arts. Okay, and this is predominantly based on one game called Free Fire, which is, I always like to say, it's probably the world's most popular game that no one's ever heard of. And the reason for that is Free Fire is extremely popular in Southeast Asia. It's extremely popular in Latin America, and that's very much so by design. It's a battle royale game that was designed for lower end smartphones. So kind of when you look at where the growth is coming from in the gaming industry, a lot of it's coming on mobile, and they're really going after these emerging markets where you're seeing, you don't have gaming PCs, you don't have console penetration in these markets. They created a game that's really going after kind of this lower end smartphone market, and it's been kind of incredible. Free Fire has also developed an extremely popular esports community. So people are watching other people play on their phones. YouTube just came out 100 billion views since inception for Free Fire on that platform. And you're seeing tons of esports tournaments throughout that Brazil and Southeast Asia region.
Awesome. So Call of Duty Mobile has been a big hit this year. So recently launched in China. How big of a catalyst could Call of Duty Mobile be for Activision and its partner in China, Tencent Holdings?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big deal. Coming back to that concept of mobile and where the growth is coming from, Activision's kind of skating to where the puck's going to be. This is a partnership with Tencent, as you mentioned. Timmy Studios, which is actually the developer behind it, has really kind of paved the way for taking AAA, highest quality content from PC or from console and porting it over to mobile in a way that the game is really playable and exciting. I mean, if you just think about a first-person shooter that you're talking about with Call of Duty, it's difficult to perfectly code a game that you can play on a smartphone, and they've really cracked that code. I mean, the China mobile market is so massive. Honor of Kings, which is another Timmy Studios game, just announced 100 million daily active users. Like, when I heard that number, my mind was blown, because I think I looked it up, and that would be like the 15th largest country in the world. And you're getting to the level there at 100 million DAUs, where you're kind of comparing to some of the world's largest social media platforms. Peacekeeper Elite's another, that's kind of their version of PUBG Mobile in China. That's one of the most highest grossing games that we've seen over the last year. So I think that it's a really significant kind of catalyst, both for Activision and potentially for Tencent. What we don't know is what the revenue split looks like. I don't believe that was disclosed, because you have Activision, which is licensing out their intellectual property. Tencent's the one actually taking it to market.
Awesome. So sticking with China, so the two large streaming companies there, Huya and Douyu, both holdings of the ETF, so they're merging together. So what does this merger kind of mean for the Chinese streaming market, and how does this affect the weighting in the ETF, if you can kind of touch on that at all?
Sure. So, I mean, the live streaming market is extremely competitive, right? If you look at the US, we've already seen Mixer, which was kind of a failed attempt by Microsoft to capture the market. They merged into Facebook. In China, we've already seen Choshu TV, Penguin TV shut down. Excuse me, not Penguin TV, but Penguin TV is actually merging in alongside Huya and DOYU. This is all to say that we're getting to a point now where the winners are becoming clear, right? It's Twitch and it's YouTube in the West, and it's right now it's going to be the combined Huya and DOYU in China and elsewhere. When I look at this company, I mean, it's fascinating. It's about a $10 billion combined market cap. They're expected to do something around $4 billion in pro forma revenue next year. But with the merger itself, you do have some antitrust concerns. They're going to control the large majority of the Chinese game streaming market. You have other players in Bilibili and Kuaishou, who's also going to IPO in Hong Kong next year. But really, this positions them to kind of really lower one of their main costs, which is signing deals with content creators and streamers, right? If you kind of have more pricing power there, that can potentially increase margins. I'd also look for this combined company, Huya, DOYU, pro forma, to really kind of be a powerhouse outside of China as well. Huya has a Nemo TV offering, which is popular in Latin America. And the question is, can they compete with the likes of Twitch on a global basis? I guess we'll see. Can't comment once again on what we're going to do in the ETF, but you're absolutely right. It's an all-stock deal right now.
Awesome. We're excited to see how that plays out. I want to ask about Enthusiast Gaming. So it's the smallest holding in the ETF, and Roundhill owns the Canadian traded shares. So this company announced plans to list on the NASDAQ, which may bring more exposure to it, more access for traders here in the US. So can you kind of give us your thoughts on the future of this company?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen the US markets. There have been other pockets elsewhere globally, but the US markets, you've seen a valuation uptick for non-US companies that have made the jump to the US exchanges. We talked about this last week with what we saw with GAN, which is previously listed in the UK. But Enthusiast Gaming is an interesting kind of public company. It's basically an internet-based kind of platform and amalgamation of different assets. They have different websites that they've acquired: The Sims Resource, Escapist, Destructoid. They also have a series of YouTube channels focused on different games, whether it's GTA or Fortnite. What's really interesting to me is their esports assets. So they own and operate several esports teams themselves. Luminosity Gaming is probably one of the best known ones. Recently signed XQC, one of the world's biggest streamers. That's actually the former team for Ninja. So Luminosity, was where Ninja really got his start. But what they're trying to do is build an audience across all of these channels. So I think they reported 300 million kind of users across their channels. They're primarily advertising is kind of their main form of revenue, but I guess we'll look to see what they can do in terms of kind of combining all of these assets into kind of a coherent strategy to increase revenue per user as they plan to uplist to the NASDAQ.
Awesome. So turning from esports a moment and just kind of looking at overall video games. So 2020 is the console war battle. So we have new consoles from Microsoft and Sony. So can you talk kind of who do you think is the winner here? And what does this look like going forward for both those companies with these new consoles?
Yeah, so let me start by saying I'm an Xbox guy. So it kind of pains me to say it's becoming pretty clear. I mean, you can just go on social media and see that PlayStation, at least right now, appears to be winning the battle. I think the main reason for this is, I'm a big fan of the Halo franchise. Halo was supposed to be kind of the flagship exclusive title to the Xbox Series X. That's been delayed until who knows when, maybe late into next year. Sony has kind of got the exclusives to bring people on. They've got Spider-Man. They've got, my brother mentioned, he's going with PlayStation because of MLB The Show. So I think Sony's really kind of positioned to win that battle right now. I mean, the future, we're at an interesting point with consoles because we're kind of on the precipice of potentially unlocking a new form of gaming, which is cloud gaming. And for those that aren't familiar, it's really kind of a new delivery mechanism that leverages kind of internet-based delivery, similar to what we see in video streaming and audio streaming. And when that happens, where you can kind of play various IPs across different devices, that's potentially the end of the console as we know it. So I think this is really the last, hardcore console war cycle, if you will, that we've seen. I'll be interested to see what Nintendo does, right? Because the Nintendo Switch has been selling tremendously as well. But now that you have these consoles coming up against them, will they release another version as well?
Yeah, one thing I've definitely been noticing, and I would agree with you too, Will. I'm an Xbox fan, and missing out on that Halo is the exclusive titles. One thing that gamers want is some exclusivity, and I think that's really what separates consoles. I mean, when you have a game that is on every console, let's say if it's on Switch, Xbox, and PS3 or PS5. I mean, when you think about that, that's just there's no exclusivity. No one's feeling like they're getting specialized, and I think that's where PS5 just focused and has the upper hand right now.
No, exactly, and it's interesting because I think the future of gaming is cross console, right? Look at why Fortnite was so successful. I could be on my phone while Chris is on his PlayStation and you're on your Xbox, and we could all play together. That's really the future. It looks like right now, some of those games, Sony's, it's working for them. Why would they let those games be elsewhere? But the future is definitely cross console, where everyone can kind of play together no matter what hardware they're working on.
Yeah, definitely. I think, that's where 5G is definitely going to come into play, is how can everything be combined? And that's going to be through the efforts of 5G.
No, exactly. 5G is the key to streaming, because you can imagine playing a shooter like Call of Duty. You can't have a second of lag, right? That's game over. You're done.
Yeah, you could hear the yelling already. So, all right. All right. So one of the stocks that I've really been paying attention to is CRSR, Corsair Gaming, Logitech, and also if you look at that you can look at here. One of the things when I looked at just overall environment with COVID was that not only were we going to have more gamers, but also these are considered computer accessories, and that's really where I wanted to focus on. And I thought it was a perfectly timed IPO by Corsair Gaming, and that's really what I'm looking at. And what do you think about the computer accessories and kind of this move going into 2021?
Yeah, we own in Nerd positions in Corsair, in Turtle Beach, and in Logitech. We also have Razer, which is listed in Hong Kong. I mean, the gaming hardware and peripheral companies are really uniquely positioned for right now, because you have COVID and the pandemic and what that's meant for more people gaming than ever before. And if you want to look up a funny chart, go to Steam database. You can see, they show the number of people playing games. And it used to be spikes on the weekend, and now it's just a straight line growing every day during the week. So work from home seems to be game from home. But these companies, they're in a position where there's so much demand for their products that they have a ton of operating leverage, right? Like, you don't need to focus as much on selling when people are buying. And that's what we're seeing play out with Corsair, with Turtle Beach. Turtle Beach is a fascinating company. I think they're going to do $2 in earnings over the trailing 12 months. This was a $4 stock in March. It's just like amazing to kind of think about the operating leverage that they're getting from this demand. And then on top of that, for a company like Turtle Beach, you also have what we just talked about, right? The console refresh cycle means you're going to get a new headset along with that heading into the holiday season. So all three of those companies are really well positioned. And it's kind of, it's also a picks and shovels type play where it doesn't matter what game people are playing. They need a headset, they need keyboard, they need PC RAM. They're going to buy it.
Yeah, and I think one area that I think everyone's forgetting is just how we're going to get into VR. I think everyone's been paying attention to all the consoles and the move. I think the technology is definitely moving towards that VR move, and we're going to have a generation of VR eventually, I think, and that's going to be bringing a whole bunch of different kind of aspects of whether it can be kind of these VR accessories. And what do you think VR is going into in 2021?
Well, that's where we get into like Ready Player One type futuristic worlds. I mean, VR, here's the thing. We've been hearing about VR for years, and it just hasn't gotten the mainstream adoption that we would have expected. I think the difficulty there is a lack of kind of what we've been talking about. It doesn't have that killer app. It doesn't have that game that everyone needs to play. You had Half-Life Alyx that was released, that's supposedly one of the best VR games of all time. But really, it's a question of, can you get VR titles that people need to have so they adopt kind of that as a gaming platform? It's still a tiny part of the market, but it's certainly something we'll look to the future. I mean, for me personally, like I don't own a VR headset, but trying them before, it is a little kind of, they need to work a little bit on making it feel like you don't get dizzy and all this stuff from kind of using it. So I think there's kind of improvements that can be made potentially on the hardware side, but it is the long-term story. I mean, imagine, for esports as well, imagine having a VR headset for an NBA 2K game that you're watching, where and you're seeing that happen with the NBA as well, right? Like VR also has applications well beyond gaming, where you can kind of introduce new experiences as well.
Yep, it's only just the beginning. So I'll let Chris go ahead and wrap up here. He got a couple more questions. And then like always, guys, if you guys are enjoying and getting value out of this, hit the like, hit the subscribe below, find Will down below, and hit the follow on his Twitter. Let's go. Chris, finish up.
Awesome. So I want to talk about Take-Two Interactive. So their shares hit an all-time high yesterday. This company has seen tremendous growth with Grand Theft Auto 5, despite this game coming out years ago. So a couple pieces here. So when do you think we see Grand Theft Auto 6? And is the esports potential of the 2K NBA franchise kind of being priced into shares, or is there more upside with Take-Two being a esports company?
So Grand Theft Auto 6, I mean, everyone's trying to figure out when that's going to come. We don't have any indication right now. And quite frankly, if you look at the amount of revenue that Take-Two continues to generate from Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto Online, you mentioned years after its release, you're not incentivized to create new content. I mean, when they introduce new content into GTA Online, their development costs are simply that particular content, and it creates a tremendous margin. And it's kind of interesting because it's really indicative of a broader shift we're seeing in the gaming industry from what used to be, you create a box title and you sell it for $60, and then you spend a few years building the next one. Now you can monetize on an ongoing basis. And I think really what we're seeing with Take-Two is it's getting a premium multiple versus some of its other peers, because so much of that revenue is kind of recurring from quarter to quarter. And it creates a model that almost looks more like SaaS than it does like what we think of when we think of hit-driven video games. In terms of 2K, I personally think that kind of the esports that are most positioned to do well are not the sports simulation titles. I mean, they're fighting against the real thing, right? So when you have the NBA, how attractive is the NBA 2K League? I think really kind of the esports that are continue to perform are Counter-Strike, our League of Legends, our Dota, things that you can't replicate in real life. I think that continues until we get to a point where the games are so real that we're seeing that transition happen. And you guys touched on VR. I think that's where we start to see esports really take a whole nother shift, but we're probably a ways away there.
All right. And then my last question here is, so we've seen several celebrities invest in esports teams in 2020. So there's several publicly traded companies that own esports teams. You touched on Enthusiast earlier. What are some of the other ways investors can, get a piece of those esports teams that publicly trade?
Sure. So there's a couple actually that are listed, not in our ETF because they're too small, but a really interesting one is Astralis. I think a lot of viewers watching right now, if they're fans of Counter-Strike, know Astralis is perennially one of the best Counter-Strike teams in the world. They're publicly traded in Denmark, believe it or not. And on top of their kind of Counter-Strike position, they also have a franchise slot in the European League of Legends League that has some balance sheet value as well. They're really interesting. Some other companies, so we talked about Huya and DOYU earlier. Huya has a few team assets under its umbrella, including RNG and a slot in the Overwatch League. So there's definitely different ways and different companies that have exposure to esports teams. I think if you're looking at some where it's kind of more going to move the needle, Enthusiast is one that comes into mind.
All right, so just to finish up here, I have a question from the chat. Always want to go ahead and fill those in here. I have a question from Andrew Garver. He asked, if gaming goes, which companies are, if cloud gaming goes, which companies are needed? So which companies could really see some success if cloud gaming really catches on?
Yeah, so I think these are two that aren't in our ETF, but potentially could be down the line. NVIDIA is one that's definitely positioned. They have their GeForce offering that's an offering in cloud gaming. Google through Stadia has gotten a little bit of backlash just in terms of the quality of that product and offering, but they're positioned as well. And then I think the game publishers continue to be a way to play this, no matter how you slice it, right? Whether you're playing on PC or cloud or otherwise, finding the game developers and game publishers that have this tremendously popular intellectual property, right? Activision Blizzard, Call of Duty is a franchise that we know is going to be popular no matter what console or hardware people are playing on for the next 10 years. I think that's probably one of the more interesting ways to play it. And on top of that, the cloud gaming platforms, if you will, are going to need to license that high quality content to get users on board. So they stand a position as well. We saw that with Ubisoft already.
Well, definitely, as you guys can see, there's a reason why we brought Will back. It's not only does he have insight on sports gambling, but also on the esports world. And thank you very much for coming on here, Will, and bringing some value to our show here. Chris, I'll go ahead and I'll let you say goodbye. And if there's anybody in the chat that has a last-minute question, put it up.
Yeah, I saw a couple questions. I want to touch on one. So someone asked about Twitch. So Twitch is owned by Amazon, which isn't in the ETF. So obviously the largest streamer here in the US, but, does being within that Amazon ecosystem, is that just too small of a portion of their business with the streaming for investors to really get excited about Twitch there?
I think at the end of the day, you look at, Amazon bought Twitch for about $1 billion in 2014. I think it's worth multiples of that. But when you look at Amazon, you're talking about, a $1 trillion company. If they shut down Twitch tomorrow, how much is the stock going to really be impacted? I'm not quite sure. For us, when we're looking at streaming, we're looking at companies that are really pure plays on esports and game streaming. So you have the Chinese names, Huya and Douyu. We also have a really interesting company in the portfolio, Africa TV, which is a Korean streaming platform that kind of grew up alongside StarCraft 2. So yeah, I think when we look at Amazon, there's just too much else going on there for us to really provide that exposure. And that's what we try and do with our ETF, is provide exposure that is going to grow as esports and game streaming grows.
Awesome. So I'm seeing a lot of thank yous in the chat, Will. So it looks like everyone enjoyed, the conversation again. We love having you on here to get kind of the insight into the industry. So we'd love to have you back on anytime. So again, thanks for being our first repeat guest on the show, and sharing your insight here.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yep. We'll see you next time, Will. Appreciate it. All right, guys, like always, guys, this is what we do, guys. We bring you guys the experts in the industry to get you the informed trades that you guys want. Like always, guys, let your friends know. Hit the subscribe down below. Put it out. If you guys know some people that are interested in some SPACs, IPO, definitely join us every single day. And we'll see you next time. And like always, let's keep it going up, guys. Let's keep it going.